And what led to you engaging in that behavior?
It was pure pleasure seeking that wasn't predicated on any regard for like the law or um, what is deemed right and necessary. Uh, it was just a time where sexual offending was more important than other aspects of my life at the time.
Now, if that's not creepy, now some of you might wonder, well, how is it possible that someone so creepy could even be in the position to groom a 14-year-old and to do this to a 14-year-old? And I think that this is just part of this Roach's manipulation. You see, Sir Richard found this profile picture to one of his social accounts. And in this account, it actually says his title is founder slash game designer. So if this is one face that he's putting on for the parole board to see, and this is the face and title and whatnot that he's putting on for teenage boys to see. Now let that sink in. Now we're gonna watch this parole hearing, and I'll unpack it with what details and my thoughts at the end.
This is an original hearing for William Asamakis, number 249478. Is that you, sir?
That's correct.
My name's Scott Manning. I'm a hearing officer with the Utah Board of Pardons and Parole. I'll be conducting today. I am going to be taking testimony from you. If you'd raise your right hand, I'll swear you in. Do you swear that the testimony you provide today will be truthful and accurate?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Did you receive at least 7 days written notice of today's hearing with your blue disclosure packet?
Yes, sir.
That disclosure packet contains the information that the board will be considering as they make a decision in your case. Part of the purpose of today's hearing is to allow you a chance to speak on that information, to point out any errors or inaccuracies that may be in there. Before I do that, we did receive, I think we sent to you yesterday a October 30th, 2024 sex offense assessment by Dr. Chandler. Did you receive a copy of that?
Yes, I have.
Did you have a chance to review that?
I did.
Okay, you do have the right to more time to receive and review it. If you want to, we can reschedule today's hearing. If you're willing to waive that disclosure, we can proceed today.
I'm willing to waive it.
Okay. And as far as all the disclosure, so the disclosure packet, this assessment, I'm planning to give an overview of your case, your sentence guideline, a little bit about how today's hearing works. We'll briefly talk about the facts of what happened in the two cases. From there, I have some questions for you about what you've been doing, your plans moving forward, and then I'll give you a chance to have the final word at the end of the hearing. But at this point, are there any errors or inaccuracies you'd like to discuss from the disclosure?
No, there's not.
Okay, your commitment offenses are entice a minor by internet or text, felony 2, and 2 counts of attempted forcible sodomy, felony 1. You're serving an aggregate sentence of between 4 years. Based on my calculations, I think the minimum 4 years passed on March 16th of 2024. So between 4 years and which may be up to life in prison. Your parole guideline calls for 62 months. That guideline would lead to you being released on May 16th of 2025. The board is not bound by the guideline. They'll consider all mitigating and aggravating factors in your case, specifically to decide the appropriate action after today's hearing. I do note in March of 2022, the board did what they called a smart scheduling. They scheduled today's hearing. They said they expected you to complete all available and recommended sex offender treatment, and then also cognitive behavioral therapy or MRT or its equivalent at a minimum, and to remain compliant with your case action plan. So that brings us to today, and we'll talk about your programming here in just a minute. The first case is case 2019-00637, January 2020. I believe at the time you were 24 years old. An officer posted a social media profile posing as a 13-year-old male. You contacted that profile, requested that this individual send nude photographs, arranged to have this individual arrive at near your house. You then arrived at that location, were arrested. You admitted to communicating with whom you thought to be a 13-year-old boy and planning to have sex with that individual. Is that accurate as to what happened?
That's accurate.
The next case, 2019-03-070, during the investigation for the previously discussed case, the police learned that you met and began chatting with the 14-year-old male victim. You and this victim sent each other sexually explicit text messages, and the victim sent a nude photo of himself. The victim reported that you had kissed and performed oral sex on each other. And then, quote, afterwards, that you inserted your penis into the victim's anus. The victim stated this happened twice on a separate occasion as well. You admitted to engaging in this behavior. You said that you had engaged in sexual intercourse and oral sex with males under the age of 18, and using dating platforms to meet and communicate with these underage males. I've read your written submissions in the board packet that you submitted to us, but is that accurate as to what happened in the case?
That is accurate.
And you regularly met and engaged in sexual activity with these underage individuals? Am I understanding that correctly? And how often would you say this occurred?
Not that often.
Can you be any more specific about that?
It happened maybe a handful of times.
And what led to you engaging in that behavior?
It was pure pleasure seeking that wasn't predicated on any regard for like the law or what is deemed right and necessary. It was just a time where sexual offending was more important than other aspects of my life at the time.
Okay. I was not able to locate any ordered restitution. I think at the SMART scheduling, the board said restitution would be addressed at this hearing. I note that the pre-sentence report does discuss various amounts of possible restitution. Are you willing to pay any restitution that is ordered or that you owe? I think the applicable law, based on your July, being sentenced before July 2021, gives the Board of Pardons the power to make restitution orders. They could order restitution as a part of condition of parole, as a contingency to meet prior to being released, or they could convert it to a civil judgment. Certainly in my review of the file, it seems restitution would be justified in this case if the proper procedures were followed. There may be to be determined order so that an investigation can be conducted into that, but just so you're aware of possibilities that could happen. But I will note your willingness to pay that restitution. Since arriving at the facility in, looks like February 2021, you successfully completed interpersonal functioning, keys to a loving relationship twice, thinking errors, various life skills classes, MRT, pre-sex offender treatment. I think the institutional progress report says you've done some things on the tablet as well. I think you were unsuccessful in the SOTP program after 2 weeks in January of 2024. That's discussed a little bit in the assessment. And then you started the program again in October of 24. Is that correct?
Yep. Yes, sir.
You've also, I think, worked on some college courses. Do you know when you're scheduled to complete the program?
I'm scheduled to complete the program within 8 to 12 months. And that's from October. So I'm thinking close to June, July of next year.
Okay. The assessment it says it recommends you do pre-SOTP, but you already did that. They're not requiring you to redo the
They're not
pre-SOTP.
requiring me to do
You've
that.
just started with the core, so 8 to 12. All right, and then what have you learned in the treatments you've done, in classes you've done?
I've learned that it is important to be. Sorry, I'm just a little nervous.
It's okay. Take your time. That's why we're here, and take your time with what you need to say.
I've learned that it is important to be a social unit, to learn social skills that are indicative of being a productive member of society. Those skills are anything from like reflective listening to thinking for a change, making sure that your thought patterns are correct and applicable. And I've also learned that it is important to understand what your actions do. and to think before you act. That's definitely part of what I've learned.
Okay, thank you for those comments. In reviewing the file, the pre-sentence report has some comments about victim impact, and certainly wanted to ask your thoughts now. And I read your statements from the time of sentencing, the board packet, in regard to empathy, some of the thinking patterns, thinking errors that you made as well. What have you learned about the victim empathy side or the victim impact of how your actions affect others?
I've learned that the victim was uh, angry and withdrawn, and how that was important to understand that those actions don't happen in a vacuum. And just because I was seeking pleasure at the time, that doesn't mitigate other people's feelings and thoughts. Um, I recognize that I'm very remorseful for the victim. I feel very remorseful for the victim, and I'm accountable. And I recognize the pathways that have led to that decision.
Okay. Now, in treatment, I believe you talk about a success plan. You may not be there yet as your point in the program, because it sounds to me like what thoughts do you have, success plan of how to change things, do things differently, and plan in the way to live your life to avoid the issues you've run into and to avoid these things? How would you describe your success plan?
The best success plan is to keep eye on what is important and what's most important for my life and my ambition, and what will lead me to be healthy and happy, and not recommit offenses. So the biggest part of that is to maintain that resolve and that motivation throughout my life and in the future.
Okay. So you received the sex offense assessment from Dr. Chandler. I guess, do you have any questions or concerns about that document?
I do not.
It identifies a well above average risk of a reoffense using the standard assessment tools. It notes that you completed the pre-program. It says you were removed from the program in January. It says, quote, for medication mismanagement resulting in you yelling at a staff member leaving the building, and then it notes you're back into it. What led to the incident that resulted in you being removed from the program?
Mainly, it was sleep deprivation. I wasn't sleeping for a few days, and I had a manic episode related to my bipolar, and that led to the medication mismanagement and then yelling at staff.
Like medication mismanagement, like there was a miscommunication about the medications you needed. You didn't get what you needed, and that you reacted in that way.
Sir.
Okay. There's a section titled Summary and Recommendations. It talks about your upbringing, your siblings and parents. It talks about some of your upbringing in high school, middle school, then your studies here in Utah. Talks about your hopes to continue studies. Talks about your sexuality, sexual preference, sexual history. Says as far as sexual preference, a preference of between 14 to 16-year-olds. Is that accurate? Would you say so you're sexually attracted to children or post-pubescent children, or how would you describe that?
I'm attracted to a wide range of individuals, but the youngest is around 14, 15.
And at your pre-sentence report, you'd made some statements about thinking errors related to sexual activity in that regard. Are you familiar with what I'm referring to with consent of regarding sexual behavior with individuals, and certainly the concerning aspect of with underage individuals, minors, young, really children? What insight do you have into that? How has your thinking changed? Has that changed?
It has changed.
What insight do you have on that?
My insight is that just because of whatever previous attraction or current attraction I might have, that's not appropriate, and that I need to take certain steps to mitigate or to prevent any offending behavior from occurring again. It's important to recognize whatever triggers in the future, create urges or whatever ability to not reoffend.
And just quickly, it recommends that you complete the program, says 10 to 12 months it will take. Also, unlock thinking, open mind, victim impact, some of the classes that I think you've been participating in and completed. Back to the triggers, what do you think your triggers are specifically? Or do you have any detail on that? What are your triggers or risk factors?
My risk factors are thought patterns and just certain attractions. And it really it's focused on the pleasure seeking and whatever at the time whatever pleasure I was seeking at the time. So
And then you talked about plans to mitigate or deal with those. What does that look like for you?
that looks like removing certain apps from my phone, to not to stay away from certain platforms online and in person, and to identify emotion and making sure I regulate my emotion correctly.
Okay. Then, so you've had 5 disciplinary incidents, the first, I believe. So in order here, December 25th, 21, says, when staff brought a breakfast tray, you started to masturbate, you refused to put your clothes on when a female staff entered in this section. What happened with this incident?
That was another manic episode. I was in a manic episode due to the bipolar that I have. Lately, it's been seasonal, and it's happened on multiple occasions. And lately, I've been managing it better with medication.
Okay, then 3 days later, says you made threats towards staff, I believe punched your door towards medical staff. What happened here?
Still have that mania.
Were you taking your medications at that time?
I was not.
Was not? You were not. And in January 2022, there's a BO2 fighting. It said you threatened physical harm to your cellmate. What happened with this incident?
I was still manic at that time, and I think there was an incident where we got into there was an altercation, and it led to a threat.
You threatened
Yes, sir.
okay. In July 2022, instructed to rack in, didn't return to your cell at that time. What happened here?
There was a fight that broke out in another section, and I stood to watch, and they told us to rack in, and I was late racking in.
Okay, then recently, August 12th, 2024, it looks like you had a tablet, didn't return the charger and cord. What, did you lose or what happened here?
I misplaced the charger and wasn't able to return it.
Just lost it?
I still don't know what happened to it. I don't know if it was just misplaced, lost it.
Okay. The institutional progress report does list jobs as an educational tutor in 2021 with a good rating, a unit worker in 23, laundry worker in 23 into 24 with an excellent rating, and then programming stipend. I assume that's in the treatment program.
Yes, sir.
You didn't have any disciplinaries for about 2 years leading up to this most recent incident. What's helped you since during that time?
A focus and commitment to change, commitment to curing or helping mitigate the mania, and taking therapeutic steps and creative steps throughout my stay to help secure my mental health.
Okay. Now, I've read your written submissions about release. I think discussing either Utah or return to Michigan around family, some of the work, treatment, et cetera. I do want to note as far as a return out of state, that would go through the interstate compact process. So if you are granted a parole, I think there's like a 90 to 120-day period. There's applications that need to be submitted, et cetera. I'd recommend, if that is something you'd like to do, talk with your case manager or your agent eventually to arrange that. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
And then I've read your written submissions. As far as your release plan, what would that look like if you're granted parole?
I'm granted parole, as you said, to interstate compact back to Michigan and then live with family. I have a big, strong, stable family support. I miss them very much, and I know they miss me, even though everything that's happened. I plan on getting or applying for a computer science type job. I have experience in the field as an intern, so I feel like the possibility of getting a job is high. And using the skills that I've learned in life skill classes to live a healthy and productive life.
Okay. I do note if you're granted parole, it will almost certainly include Group A sex offender conditions. That requires an assessment in all recommended sex offense treatment, having no contact with victims unless approved, have no contact or association with children under the age of 18 unless approved, not date anyone with children under the age of 18 living with them unless approved, not go where children congregate or are expected to be, including holiday gatherings, etc., not possess pornography or sexual stimulus material, have your residences and jobs approved. There's additional conditions in there, but that I think almost certainly would be included. What are your thoughts about those conditions?
I understand that what those conditions are meant for and what they're applied for. And I'm willing to cooperate and make sure that these conditions are met in order for me to be most successful.
Okay.
Yep.
I've read your written submissions about mental health and your diagnoses. I think you, in your discussions about what you perceive as potentially contributing to your thinking errors, leading to the crimes, etc. Okay, those are the questions I have for you. Is there anything else you'd like the board to know?
Just a closing remark, and just I've already addressed this, but just to reiterate that I am deeply remorseful for what I've done, and I understand the damage is substantial. I am accountable for my actions, and I recognize the pathways that have led me to what has happened. I'm aware of my autism diagnosis, and though I don't blame what I've done on the autism diagnosis, I recognize that it is something that must be dealt with and addressed in order to prevent any reoffending from happening. I am incredibly sorry for what I've done, and I hope the victim has had time to heal. And the victim I'm referring to is from the second case, and I hope he's successful. I'm ready to start the next chapter of my life, and I hope that, and I appreciate what all the board has done and giving me the opportunity to be here today.
Okay. What I'll do from here is take your case under advisement. I've put together a report of what I reviewed before today's hearing. I'll include what you and I talked about today in that report, and then I'll submit that to the members of the board probably by tomorrow. There's 5 members of the board. They make decisions by majority vote. Usually that takes a couple weeks for a decision to be made. Once it is made, we'll send it to you in writing through the mail, and it will also be posted to the board's website if there's anyone in the community that would like to access it there. So with that, thanks for being here and discussing these things with me. Wish you the best of luck, and we'll go ahead and
I
conclude.
appreciate it.
All right, so the board granted November 4th, 2025 is when he will get out. And look, let's just take a step back and remember, he was sentenced to 2 counts of attempted forcible sodomy, 3 years to 100 years sentence. And that's Utah for the gimmick of it, right? They give these 100-year sentences. But in a nutshell, what happened is that he was caught in a sting operation. So good on Utah police setting up a sting. He thought he was learning in an underage boy. when they arrested him in the sting, they found the CP on his phone, which was him assaulting a 13-year-old boy. So that's what he's arrested for, locked up for, and ultimately it seems that he's going to serve a total of, what is it? 5 years. 5 years, ladies and gentlemen. So that's the lesson that we learned. You can get caught in this. Imagine the money it costs to do the sting operation and then to prosecute him and the whole thing. And it's like, but don't worry. While he's locked up, he's literally getting sexual type write-ups. That is terrifying. He has no excuse for it. He claims that the prison's giving him all the stuff that he needs, in terms of medication and whatnot. And he's still sitting there yanking the thing with the COs coming in. Like, what, you think he's going to be safe on the outside, Utah? Some people just aren't safe. Oh man, dude, where's your compassion? Clearly there's something wrong with him, but okay. Then I point to you that picture. He's clearly smart enough he knows how to put on the face that he needs and the title that he needs to lure and groom 13-year-old boys when he can tell them, hey, I'm a founder of a computer game software company. I can get you a job. That this is, well, my guess is that's how it went down. And it's important to see both sides of the spectrum. And what's he want to do? He wants to get a CDL license. He wants to do more programming. The two things that sex offenders want, right? The two dangerous things. I saw someone wrote a comment, CDL. It's the acronym for children. What was it again? It was a cute acronym that said exactly what CDL. I can't remember what he wrote or she wrote in the comment section. But if any of you know, is it like a common acronym? But yeah. How creepy. At least he admits what he's into. You give him that. Although he didn't really admit it. I think he said 14 to 16. We know at least he had one victim, 13. I believe it's younger. We've seen enough of these predator catcher stuff, what these roaches are into. But enough with that. He's going to get released. At least he'll be under supervision. At least he'll be watched. At least he'll be monitored. Because it's a 100-year sentence, I think it means he'll be under supervision for the rest of his life. And hey, at least that's good. But can you imagine getting sex write-ups while you're in prison for this crime and to still be given an opportunity and still be granted parole? It's kind of weird, disturbing. Louisiana, you have to go 3 years without a write-up to get parole. But it's Utah. They don't have a lot of beds. And that's what they do. With that, did I tell you? Thank you, Richard. Richard, of course, put in all the notes on this one, tagged it, flagged it, and unpacked it for me because I was quite confused about it to begin with. So thank you, Sir Richard. And with that, I'll let you go.
Insight you have on that?
My insight is that just because of whatever previous attraction or current attraction I might have, that's not appropriate, and that I need to take certain steps to mitigate or to prevent any offending behavior from occurring again. It's important to recognize whatever triggers in the future create urges or whatever ability to not reoffend.
Children, or how would you describe that?
I'm attracted to a wide range of individuals, but the youngest is around 14, 15.